All right, so hello everybody. I really can't see or make out any shapes in there, but I'm really honored to be here. I just want to thank Ruth, and I want to thank one of my fantastic teachers from Metro, Mr. Neil Blue. Just say hi out there if you're out there, Neil, and hi to your new baby girl. Um, One of the great things about Metro is that I'm friends with a lot of my teachers. I go to lunch with them, have coffee, and they're the most awesome people I've ever met. But to start my talk, I just wanted to give you a little background about myself. I was originally from Columbus City Schools, and then I went to Metro, which is early college STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So everything I did in high school was supposed to be STEM focused, STEM this, STEM that, STEM research, STEM jobs, STEM internship. And I ended up at OSU majoring in history. And I'm a huge history nerd. Almost every quarter that I've been able to take classes at OSU, I've been taking higher level history classes. I'm absolutely fascinated by it. But I think there's a more important point. Some previous speakers, Dr. Long had hit on the importance of community, and the educational community is something that is very, very precious to me. And as a student from Columbus City Schools originally in my middle and elementary school, I see a really huge difference between the way education is approached in traditional school settings and in programs like Metro. Traditional schools, there's this static notion of curriculum, and at Metro that's not really there. It's this more dynamic element. It's learning as a process, and this is absolutely fascinating. As a student, I had always been really curious. I've always been a really huge nerd and love to do random things and go through book phases at the library. But other students aren't like me, and other students might not like the same things that I like. And you think a STEM program would be restrictive in its title because it's focused on, the sciences. But that STEM title is really, really misleading because STEM really is a program, not necessarily a way to live your high school years. I just have some pictures of sort of learning centers that we had through Metro. There's so many different opportunities regardless of what you're interested in. You don't have to be an engineering major as soon as you get into Metro to understand and respect what they're doing for students. Another huge part of Metro that I valued most was the connections that I was able to make with the instructors there and the students. Like I said, I really value the time that I spent with my instructors there. And the reason I loved it so much is because there's this sort of organic feedback system that's there between instructors and students. So coming in, I really loved art. I wanted to go to Fort Hays High School, which in Columbus City Schools is a school that focuses on the art. And I was waitlisted on all the high schools for Columbus's lottery system at like 800. And I cried that day like a baby. And my mom had to rub my back. But after getting in my first year, the principal had known that I was very interested in art, and a lot of the instructors had also known that I loved it, and that's what I wanted to do. And I was scared originally that STEM was going to be very restrictive, but the instructors took that and they sort of bounced ideas off each other, and through their connections with Patel and the Columbus Museum of the Arts and Franklin Park Conservatory, they set up learning centers and learning opportunities, and I actually got to intern at the Franklin Park Conservatory, and they had learning centers that were stationed in Franklin Park Conservatory, so I had my botany class there, and that's one of the presentations going on in the Chihuly Center right there, where students are actually learning in that sort of environment. And I think that's so amazing that instructors actually care and nurture students to think outside of the box, but at the same time, they want to know what you're interested in. It's not just, I'm going to feed you what you need to know to meet these standards for these tests. It's here, take this, what can you do with it? And that absolutely blew my mind. And it's a lot of Socratic seminar type discussions in class where you sit in a big circle and you essentially talk about whatever you're going over. So in classes, we had this advisory unit where you have one advisor, and it's like an extended homeroom. So you'd stay with that advisor and your other students, and you'd do service learning in that advisory unit. But you'd also have discussions about maybe a problem that week or something that came up in the news, and you would want to know how that made you feel. And you'd also get to talk with your instructor to see how they were taking it and the different perspectives everywhere. And I really gained a lot from that experience. My first year, my advisor's name was David Reese, and he's the most dancingest bald person I know. And he is a very compassionate man. He also is my language arts teacher. And he ended up leaving Metro after a couple of years to go and teach in Huron, Ohio. And he's still my advisor to this day. I still talk to him. I called him about college decisions quite a few times. Even though he's, busy with his family, he still had time for me, and I love it. It's just amazing that I can still remain in contact with this wonderful person who's influenced me in so many ways. And part of it is the way that Metro embraced what I love to do and embraced that I was a nerd and I like certain things. And Mr. Reese, he sort of understood what kind of person I was. When I came in, I had this really bad perfectionist tendency, which my parents have been dealing with their whole time bringing me up. And it's great work-wise, but it's not very good for an individual after so many years of dealing with it. And one of the things that I thought I was going to have to do eventually was settle for less with myself. And Mr. Reese really pushed me to try my hardest and learn to accept what I can do and learn how to make things happen without being constantly stressed. Don't be constantly stressed about these benchmarks, because do those really tell you anything about the individual? Does that mean that I'm really any smarter than one other person just because I did better on this test? No, it doesn't. Thoughts are important, and these unique experiences with all these different ideas changed me, and they made me more confident. They helped me find my voice, which is amazing. I found an academic voice, and I also found a more personal voice that allows me to speak strongly on subjects I feel very passionately about. Well, most of the time that's history, which isn't very interesting to many people. Well, I'm sorry, there are professors for history, of course, and I love talking with that. But it's just really amazing, and it gave me so much more confidence in my own academic pursuit. My senior year, I actually did a senior research project, which is a year-long project that we had through Metro, where you connect with a faculty member at OSU, and you basically do research in their lab. So I worked with Dr. Jessica Winter at Coalfield Laboratories, and while we were there, I worked on a project with a couple of her grad students, and while I was in the lab, I was synthesizing fluorescent magnetic nanocomposites for intraoperative visualization of glioblastoma multiforme, which is a very deadly tumor. So all throughout this process, I'm really fascinated by everything. But my specific job was to optimize the size of the polygalactic coglycolic nanospheres that we were trying to manufacture. And I also had to put the iron oxide nanoparticle and the carbon nanoparticle in the same polygalactic coglycolic nanosphere. And I was working on that, and midway through the year, I was able to get the iron oxide. I used this aqueous synthesis that the lab student before had left, and nobody had done it there that was in the lab. But I used the SOP, which is a standard operating procedure, and I was able to synthesize these iron oxide nanoparticles by aqueous means instead of using a high temperature precursor. And then Dr. Winter the next week asked me if I could get a video of the response to a magnet, and this is after I had lyophilized my sample. And I had to re-immerse it in solution, and it responded, and I made a video of the response. And you wouldn't think, at least me as a history major, I wouldn't think that's going to respond to a magnet after I already lyophilized my sample. But that's beside the point. I think aside from that, just yeah, I was so excited. You should have seen me in the lab. The grad student that I was working on, she's wonderful, Jenny. She is actually from Haiti, so she has the cutest accent ever. And she was looking at me, she's like, "Meagan, what are you doing?" And I was so close to the magnet with the camera because I was so proud. But and I showed it to my parents and my advisors multiple times. They probably don't like me so much for that anymore, but that's okay. But the senior research experiment, really, that was me using my voice, I think, and using what had been rekindled within me as a nerd, loving to learn, regardless of what the subject material is. Yes, biochemical engineering is STEM related, but I guess I should probably wrap that up. But sorry, it just blows my mind. But I just want to end with that whole experience of finding my own voice and this educational process. And I just want to let you know, anybody out there who's connected to a student in any way, and who is considering having children, or wants to make a difference in a community, an educational community, I challenge you all to be a part of this dynamic educational community. Don't go by the standards in the curriculum and these labels, because even from STEM is a misnomer. STEM really encompasses every letter of the alphabet. I love art, I love history, and bam, I came from a STEM school, and I don't think I'm better prepared for anything. Like, as a student, I feel I'm most prepared comparing myself to other students, my best friends who came from traditional high schools. I feel, I can't toot my own horn, but I feel a lot better off in a college setting, even though I'm not going into engineering, or math. And I just want to challenge you all to try and make a difference in a student's life. Challenge them as best you can. And when it comes to the idea of the curriculum and the standards and, worrying about ACT and SAT, yeah, that's important for state reasons, but really challenge them to go deeper, get below the iceberg with thinking, and find their own personal voice. That's what helps you. That's what helps you in college. That's what helps you in life. And that's what changes people.